Okay, so hello, welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us on this discussion. So today we talk about scaling your startup across borders, how to get started on building your remote team. So this event is being done in partnership with Deel. This is the second episode of the three-part series where we talk to experts about scaling your company and building your team remotely. So before we start, so there are some house rules that we have to abide by. So one is, please join the discussion. You can type in your thoughts and comments on the chat widget. And secondly, the floor is always open for questions. Our panelists will be answering questions in the later half of this webinar. So please type in your questions in the Q&A widget. And thirdly, and that's the most important one, so this webinar is being recorded. So we'll be posting it on our online channels, and we'll also be emailing the link to all the attendees when this session is over. Okay. Chin, Chin, can you put up this poll? Okay, so now, so that's one quick poll. So we would like to know at which stage your company is currently is in terms of scaling. So there is a question on the screen, and please answer it. So we'll give you a few seconds to answer the poll. So there are basically two questions. One is your company expanding to a new market in the next 3 to 6 months? And second question is, are you planning to hire a remote team in the next 3 to 6 months? So let me know when you all answer the poll. Okay, so I think that the poll is done. And okay, so thanks all. Thank you all for your participation. And now I would like to hand over the floor to our moderator, Meltem Kuran. So welcome, Meltem. You can start now the panel discussion. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us. Hello, everyone. I will start off by introducing myself, and then we'll go around the room where our panelists will also introduce themselves, and then we're going to dive right into it. So I'll start with why Deel is doing this first before I even get to myself. So at Deel, we are a company that allows for international teams to hire international people and also pay them compliantly without having to worry about how you're going to process their payments. Now, it used to be that regulatory things, so the legal side of hiring someone internationally or not knowing how you're going to process their payments on a regular cadence is the thing that was the barrier to entry for building a remote international team. Now that we've built this solution where essentially you're able to hire someone without having to worry about the compliance and payment side of things, we get asked all the time, well, but how did you go from being a 10 people company last year to now over a 200 people company in just 1 year, fully remote? And we realized that some of the most meaningful conversations that we end up having with our audience is when we're sharing our best practices. It is obviously in our best interest to ensure that every single company at least feels comfortable with the idea of remote work, international hiring, so that they can choose to hire or not to hire internationally. So now we're on a mission to share the best practices with the whole world so everybody can hire internationally. And myself specifically, I'm the head of growth at Deel. I joined the company about a year ago when we were just 10 people. Since then, we've grown to be over 200. I'm originally Turkish. I usually live in Canada, but at the moment I've been spending the past few months in Istanbul visiting my family, which has been amazing because if I didn't work at a remote company, I wouldn't have been able to kind of take this time to work from here. I think it's best if we go around the table, or I guess the screen, and get to know our panelists. So why don't we start with Dara Lee, who is the HR manager at CloudMile. Dara, would you like to introduce yourself to the group?
Hi, everyone. Nice to having us. I'm Dara, an HR manager from CloudMile. Now we are based in Taiwan. CloudMile is a B2B company that focuses on cloud and AI technology in our business to accelerate digital transformation through cloud technology and machine learning. As a leading technology company in Asia, we currently have an office in Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore, and Malaysia. For me, I'm based in Taiwan. Thank you.
That's amazing. Thank you for the introduction. Next up, we have Sanghee Lee, which is the country manager for Korea at SendBird.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sanghee, and I'm country manager of SendBird's Korean office, which is our APAC headquartered operations. SendBird is #1 chat and messaging API in the world, and we power over 150 million chat users in a monthly basis. And also we are servicing 2.5 billion messages on a monthly basis. Our customers include some of the world's largest tech companies, such as Paytm, Dream11, Rakuten, or Delivery Hero. And we try to serve many different verticals like digital healthcare, online shopping, and on-demand services. I'm here as country manager in Korea, but uniquely, I also moved from the US in the last year because SendBird operates in the 5 different global locations, including Singapore, Bengaluru, Seoul, and also Silicon Valley, as well as UK. So I'd like to share my knowledge and experiences of how to make the global operation possible with some of the a centralized and decentralized consideration.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the introduction. And finally, we have Abhinav Krishna, who is head of expansion for APAC at Deel, also my coworker. Abhinav, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so heading Deel, and the journey has been amazing. Say the first employee in Asia, when I met the founders, felt the idea of this whole remote work and future of work is so amazing. I packed my bags in 15 days in San Francisco and moved to Singapore. And of course, Singapore is home. I started a couple of companies here, have worked with a couple of founders in the region as well, and know some of the startup ecosystem here as well. The main purpose for working with E27 and the other panelists on this front as well, and thanks everyone for joining as well, is that we are seeing a lot of movement which is happening in distributed team, remote work, and there have been concerns. And we just want to work with everyone in this amazing region of Southeast Asia to help solve those queries and share our experiences as well on that front.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, without further ado, let's jump right in and start with the basics. And the first question I want to ask our panelists is, where should you start when you're creating a manpower plan? And Sanghee, I know you have some amazing experience here with SendBird. Would you like to kick us off?
Yeah, so to set the context and background, so unlike many other global companies and their regional operations, SendBird Korea has very unique position in our global operations. So we started our Korea business first, then we create US office to make it to our global headquarters office. So because of that, our Korean office not only just have a sales function, but we also have a full suite of functionality such as design, HR, people, and finance, as well as engineering offices as well. So we'd like to actually set the top down and bottoms up approach when we plan our headquarters throughout the global. For instance, some of the top down should be some metrics driven. What does it mean is, what are some of the key considerations such as ARR, annual recurring revenue per full-time employees, and what are some of the some capacity model of our sales team? So how many a quota a person will be carried out for a sales team, and what are some of the engineering team's capacity model? And also bottoms up model is we are trying to consider some local hiring market as well as some local competition from some regional tech companies. So by synthesizing this top down and bottoms up model, we try to have a very constant feedback between some global headquarters as well as some key executive in our regional operations.
That's incredible. Thank you for the detailed overview. Dara, how about your experiences at CloudMile in kind of getting started with creating a manpower plan?
Okay, we all know HR planning is all about finding the right people and at the right time for the right position and meet the business need of the company in order to generate more future growth. So aligning with the company annual goals and developing hiring strategies is the first step when we create a manpower plan. For example, we have 4 offices in Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore, and Malaysia. The company will focus on different verticals in 4 regions. Say, if the company decide to develop the FSI business in Hong Kong and SMB sector in Singapore, we would then align the strategy with 2 different hiring plans. As for Taiwan, if the company is going to focus on developing AI experts, and thus hiring happens on technology talents.
Got it. Incredible. Thank you for sharing that. And finally, Abhinav, what are your experiences with setting up a manpower plan?
I think this is a very interesting topic, and it changes from size of the company to company. And given a lot of our audience members are coming from the startup side, I think it actually starts from day one itself. When I started the company, I was a foreigner in Singapore. When the company moved to San Francisco, I was a foreigner in San Francisco. The first step for me was to hire myself into another company. And on day 0 itself, what the whole strategy was that how do we work with compliance, making sure the manpower plan is right. So for me, creating a manpower plan is the most important part of the business. And it actually starts from day -1 to ensure that everything is compliant, you know whom you're going to hire, or like even hiring yourself. Think this way, right? I think 55% of the companies in US are actually founded by foreigners, and they have to find a way to manage themselves. And we at Deel are seeing that as well. Like we have 200 people now from 45 countries, and we are not taking the part of you are Turkish and living in Canada, I'm Indian living in Singapore. We will get into more and more nationalities around there. So the day 1 is start thinking about number 1 is how do you hire yourself? Number 2, start thinking on the part of which team you're looking to hire. Working with 3,500 clients today, we see companies are looking at hiring tech talent first, then maybe moving to DevOps, then customer success, and content writer. But yeah, that's an important part which should start from day -1 itself.
Got it. Incredibly helpful. Thank you so much for sharing. And we discuss a lot about like what are the tactical things companies need to have in place to ensure that you have a manpower place to begin with, and a manpower plan to begin with. But what are the specific characteristics that a hiring manager should be looking for when you're hiring for remote team members? Because chances are it's not the same person that flourishes when they're in an office versus when they're in a remote setting. So Sanghee, I'd love to kick it off with you again to share kind of what do you look for when you're hiring remote team members? What are the characteristics of successful hires?
So our very first remote team was with Singapore and Bengaluru and UK office, and our decision behind, like our rationale behind the decision was actually proximity to the customers. SendBird has actually customers in all over the world in the 150 different countries. So we try to give like a most fulfilling and also satisfying relationship where customer can have our support, and also we can talk to customer in very same time zone. So that's where we first create the sales team and customer success team, as well as account manager team in the remote team consideration, where a person has a perfect successful track record of managing the customer's life cycle without some like a physical office environment. And the secondly, we also think about supporting different function in the different offshore office. What does it mean is, even if our Singapore office and Bengaluru office doesn't have some GA function such as people and finance, so we try to support their needs by operating offshore office in our Korea operation. So that is, like a type of, some tactical consideration when we first expanded with our remote team. But other consideration is very, like a fundamental thing, whether the person is a self-motivated person and also self-fulfilling with some of the professionalism. So those are something we try to address using our value interview. What does it mean is SendBird has, 7 core value that lays out some 7 principles, what could be the desirable for our corporate citizenship and also our service for our customer. So we try to construct some of the structured interview format, and we try to just walk through that question in order to address if the person is qualified for our 7 core values for that remote operations.
Got it. It's incredibly helpful to have those, 7 or however many core values to anchor everybody. So that's a great tip. And Dara, how about yourself at CloudMile? You do a ton of hiring. What are some of the traits that you look for in a successful remote team member?
I think we all agree that work is no longer a place after post-COVID. Research says, I remember research says an estimate 48% of workers will continue to work remotely post-COVID. So regardless of whether the recruits are in the core office, we have 4 areas where CloudMile will continue to expand in the future. When we recruit talents, professional competence will be the basic threshold. After the professional competence reaches certain standards, we will focus on whether this person has certain characteristics that meet company culture, including if they can react agility, if they are a team player, and if they can be self-motivated. That would be really important characteristic when we find out new team members.
Got it. Thank you for sharing that. I loved your quote where you said work is no longer a place. It rings so true to the post-pandemic world and where the future of work is headed. Abhinav, how about you? What do you look for when you're hiring, fellow Deel team members?
Yeah, so giving you idea from 2 sides. So I believe in 2 things, 2 points which I look for. I go for very ambitious people and people who have 0 egos. I think what kills the company and the culture is generally that this is not my work. And this is becoming very and that is going to kill the team because either people are working remotely or they're working from home and we cannot provide them physical HR or the accounting or the people's team, etc. They have to manage 20, 30, 40% of the work by themselves. So number 1, ambition, and 0 ego, which I think plays a very crucial role. And we at Deel see this ourselves, right? Look at Alex, who's the CEO of the company. If I ask him to name all 200 people in the company, I think he will do it in 15 minutes. And another thing which I see in terms of 0 ego is he spends a couple of hours every week on the support chat to understand the customer, given we are managing a huge support team and the success team. And this comes from the culture itself. I think at the company, we set those cultures that we are looking for very ambitious and 0 ego people, but it also comes from the management and us who are actually building this together. And we are not teaching anyone that this is not my job is the motto of the business. The motto of the business is how we can grow fast and continue to having a very ambitious approach to the business. And that's what I look for when I hire anyone in this at Deel or wherever I have hired before as well.
Got it. That's incredibly helpful. And I think it rings true that when you're in a remote setting, people need to be able to take things on because you don't have the luxury of all being in the same place to pass the buck to someone else. And one of the things that I will share from my experience of having hired at Deel is earlier on, I came to the company, I was employee number 1 on the growth team. And that was okay, now let's build a team underneath you. And I had to rely on hiring relatively senior talent early on so that they could be self-contained and individual contributors, and that if we were in different time zones, I'm not necessarily blocking them from doing their best work. And what I had to do was give them all the context they need to make the right decisions and not rely on me or anybody else to make a call and they can just act on their own. So Now we're at a point where the team is more people, we have more coverage across different time zones where we are hiring across, the junior to senior spectrum. But early on, one of the things that I made the call on was we're going to hire mostly senior talent. So next question is, when you're in a local place, it's relatively easy to find the right candidates to hire. You ask your network, you know them through your social connections, and one way or another, you find the best person around you. How do you find candidates when you're hiring internationally? Potentially you've never worked in the country before, you may not have any connections there, you may not know what job platforms to use, who you could ask for referral. So Abhinav, I'd love for you to kick us off with how you go about finding the right candidates across the world.
Perfect. We are currently working with more than 3,000 clients, and 40% of the people these clients have hired are actually in APAC. And my job is to talk to a lot of these people. So I'm actually going to go on the statistics side with them rather than giving my personal opinion on this front. What we are seeing today, like how they are able to find the candidate, given we work with outsourcing companies, agencies as well, who are hiring and staffing and recruitment company, they are relying on two parts today. One is the own network. And I think that's the most beneficial part today, where we are seeing that people are looking at the second or third degrees of connection and using LinkedIn a lot, or using some of these admin groups who have been made up relating to sales, relating to tech work, top talent, etc., to hire people. The other area which we have seen, and this is coming very interestingly in some of the niche market as well, and some of the areas where you have a lot of talent, but you're looking to find. So one example which I've seen is people hiring in the blockchain industry, or people hiring in as a sales rep industry, because people coming in the sales side are not actually a degree in sales. They have just experience in sales. Where there we are seeing agencies which are coming up, and people are using them to hire people today. And in terms of number, I would say that it's generally around 70-30, where 70% is reliant on their own network and 30% is reliant on the agencies today.
Got it. Thank you for sharing that. And so Dara, do you have anything to add there? I know you're on the HR side of things. You might have some of the best practices in the field.
Okay, thank you. We actually usually still recruit on our own. Sometimes we also cooperate with local hunters to understand more about the local talent market, and like manpower supply and demand. We also like using platforms like LinkedIn and local job bank like JobStreet in Singapore and Malaysia. We also use referral to find a great candidate more efficiently. Besides, we also work with local university to give us a hand on global recruitment.
Got it. Those are some amazing avenues to find the best talent. Before we move on to the next question, Sanghee, do you have anything to add there, or should I jump us into the fourth question?
Actually, most of the, our level for local talent acquisition was covered by Abhinav and also Dara. But one interesting factor we can source talent is from our client company. As a B2B company, we always expand to a market where our customer exists. And if our, customers and their engineer inside, they see our technology and culture are very intriguing and also desirable, I think that will be also a fantastic opportunity. We can source some of, a talented engineering without diluting or compromising the value of the customer company. So we have two engineers actually came to our company from our customer's company because they were fascinated by our, centricity for customers and also how fulfilling and also engaging culture we have for our employee. So that was interesting, some, opportunity we were able to source talent outside.
That's actually amazing. I love how it's true, because people actually see the value of your product firsthand, and then you ask them, hey, do you want to join in on the other side of the grass field, basically. That's amazing to hear. So we talked about, what makes a great international hire. What are some red flags to watch out for when you're, looking for that international talent during the recruitment process? Dara, could you kick us off with some red flags to look out for?
Okay, great. I believe we all agree that hiring the wrong candidate can cost a lot, not only the salary cost, time cost, resource cost, and even affect morale of the team. For me, I will point out two sides. First, during the interview, I would say being punctual to the online interview is a must, as there's no traffic jam or parking issue, only if there's a technical issue on the internet. The interviewee should find the quiet and good internet environment. For example, there's once me and my team having an interview with a candidate who had a very poor internet environment. So we had to wait for like 15 to 20 minutes to begin the interview. So candidates should really rehearse for the interview so avoid such embarrassment. Second, we would raise the red flag on the candidate who didn't bring up the questions during the recruitment process. This especially is not a good sign for remote work candidates. As for the remote work, you are not physically having contact with actual operation. Keep yourself aligned with the different party by asking questions and make sure you are on the same page with the team. I see this as a very key characteristics for teamwork remotely.
Thank you for sharing that. Abhinav, do you have anything to add in terms of red flags?
Yeah, so I think Dara mentioned one of them is you want the candidate to be prepared in terms of asking questions. And sometimes, and we know, right, the remote interview process is very tough. It's a session which can actually blow mind of certain candidates as well. So the way I work with the candidates is like the first call for me with any candidate is a 15 minutes intro, which is not the interview. They can ask me any questions about Deel. And there I want to see about that, how well prepared they are. Is this interview just something for them to just come and show themselves, or they are actually prepared, they're looking for a job. So if they're not prepared, I know it's a red flag for me. Also, and I think, Meltem, you have also experienced that, and other people would have experienced this as well. We are actually hiring people who have less experience or more experience than me and you in the company, and you have to manage this really well. Most of the time, I generally have more of a problem-solving discussion with anyone I'm hiring. So we'll take one problem, because I will be working with this person for next 4, 5, 6, 8 years. And I will actually discuss a lot more about going through the problem, what experience they had in the past when they have solved that kind of a problem, what they can bring in. And by going deeper into one of the problem, it actually gives a real reflection of what real experience they have in their life and in the past work, rather than just looking something on the resume and asking questions, which I think is very well rehearsed or prepared. And if I find on that front that, oh, that problem is not being solved, and see, frankly speaking, the problem could be in the culture or people, the type of person we are looking to hire. So candidates should not take it personally that we are rejecting them for a reason that, oh, they are wrong, but it's also like what company is looking at that point of time is right or wrong. So for me, 2 things there: how well prepared you are about the company, about that knowledge. Second is how deep you know of the experience you are showcasing on your resume. And would highly suggest people should showcase really things which they know, rather than a lot of things together on the resume.
Sanghee, anything to add there? I'm sure you've, being employee number 1, you've had your fair share of hiring across the world.
Yeah, so I think remote interview process and remote hiring by default may have some limitation of, like a context as well as some interaction quality. So common pitfall is actually a misunderstanding between someone's actual achievement. When speaking about accomplishment, sometimes someone can sugarcoat the accomplishment of the entire team as if that is someone else's, like own individual contribution. So you need to really take a super deep dive by asking the follow-up question and also try to articulate some conflicting situations. So by taking that much real deep dive conversation, you will be able to articulate and attribute what the actual contribution the person is made. And then by doing so, you need to also distinguish some extraordinary talent who can become self-driven and also self-sufficient, operating outside of the, your main country.
Mm-hmm. That's incredible for sharing. And I would share one of the main things that we do at Deel to ensure we hire the right people and basically catch those red flags is we make sure that we give people a case study, because case study is one where you can't, sugarcoat it. You can't, unless you're getting someone to actually complete it for you, which has happened to us once. Someone reached out to us saying, someone's paying me to complete your case study. Unless you're getting someone else to do it for you, it's one of those things that it's incredibly hard to fake your way through it. And considering that in a remote work environment, there needs to be this heightened level of trust. You need to be able to leave your team member with the work and know that, they're sitting in their home, they're doing the work, they're not watching Netflix, they're not, and they're actually going to be able to complete it on their own. So case studies have been incredibly critical for us to find those red flags and weed them out, essentially. And I guess our final question of the session before we start answering the QA questions from the people who are listening in, by the way, just a reminder for people to drop in their questions in the QA section. I'm taking a look at them. I will be asking it to our panelists soon. Is what are the tips for onboarding new remote employees? Obviously, it looks a little bit different than shaking their hands on day one and giving them an office tour and inviting them in on a bunch of meetings. Abhinav, would you like to kick us off with what are some of your best tips for a successful onboarding?
So let's shamelessly say Deel. First is the best tool, fastest growing company in this region. Funny thing, I have never met any of our 200 employees we have. And I still feel very well connected with the team and we don't have a HR and the people ops to manage. Mm-hmm. Everything is managed via Deel platform. So Deel is amazing. But more than that, I think what is important is how do you connect with each and every member of the company? And for me, Notion has played a very crucial role. It's a Wikipedia for a corporate company where people can create content about the company, and it's very well organized. Given the time zone I was in, everyone was in North America and Europe. Notion helped me a lot to understand a lot about the product. People had written their own journey of on any topic, like hiring at Deel, first week at Deel, first day at Deel, and that helped me a lot. So for me, Deel is a great product for onboarding a new employee. But if you want to have training programs, tracking programs, sharing some content and having Wikipedia about the business, Notion is a great tool to do that as well.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Awesome. Dara, what are some of your best practices for onboarding new remote employees?
Okay. In CloudMile, we have several processes for onboarding remote employees. First, we will provide the onboarding guidebook through email before the onboard date. The mail includes company's email account, introducing the communication tools we use like Facebook Workspace, Workplace, and collaboration tools like Google Workspace. It helps us, a new employee, to understand how to cooperate with colleagues on the first date. On their first date, we'll arrange an orientation meeting, introduce the company team, organization policy, and company culture. And we put all the files in Google Drive so the employee can always find the answer at the first time. Then we'll introduce the team lead to them. It always feels good to know who they can ask for help when facing difficulty.
Got it. Thank you so much for sharing. And finally, Sanghee, what are some of your best practices for onboarding new remote employees?
I think technology and knowledge sharing and creating a culture of inclusion, they are all important. In terms of technology, we try to automate onboarding process, as automated as possible using the solution called Greenhouse. And in terms of knowledge sharing, not only just using Notion, for engineering, like a friendly organization or product team, in order to create seamless integration with Confluence and Jira, we try to utilize Confluence as a knowledge-based knowledge sharing tool for engineering and product team. And in terms of creating a culture of inclusion and also engagement, we try to have many, a remote event, such as a 20 question for unemployment and also welcoming event, or some donut event. And also for, like a swag, we try to create as many swag as possible. So personally, I have more than, like a 20 SendBird t-shirts and 5 SendBird hoodies. And when we raised our Series C fund in the last April to become our unicorn status, we also create some hoodie of like a unicorn edition. So it was very, like a fun and engaging how our design team and people team collaborated together to make some fun and inclusive culture together using this company swag.
Got it. I think Abhinav is wearing our unicorn limited edition Deel t-shirt, as you mentioned. So I love that. It's a best practice. It's certainly something that ties people together. So we've reached the end of, the questions that we had set to answer amongst ourselves. And we're getting a bunch of questions through the Q&A section and also through the chat. So I'm going to start going through some of those. And since we were just discussing some of the software that we use, everything from Bamboo HR to Deel, Zen is asking, which HR management software would you recommend? And I think this is worth getting an answer from everybody. And I think if you could answer with like what you recommend and what it's used best for, because HR management software can be quite a broad area. Let's kick it off with Abhinav.
All right, so it depends what you're going to manage, right? And where your team is situated. If it's situated like locally and your interest is just payroll, then look for any HR management system. One more thing, I generally believe that there are 4 things which you need to consider when looking for a HR management system. And I call that model a HTTP model, which is you're looking for hiring, training, tracking, or payroll, and accordingly decide that what makes sense for you, whether it's for remote work. For remote work, Deel is awesome. And if you're just looking for local, just see whichever suits the best for you, and whether you're in Singapore or in US.
Got it. And how about you? Let's go with Sanghee and then Dara next.
Yeah, for recruiting purpose specific, ATS solution, we use Greenhouse. So we used to use Lever for ATS solution, but because of the seamless integration Greenhouse offer, we switched to Greenhouse 2 years ago. And for HRIS system, we use Bamboo HR in order to operating our global HR information system. And some training purpose, we use Brainshark for our internal employee training. But for some, like a knowledge-based sharing that can be shareable to externally, we also use a HighSpot. So we try to use, many different like operating system as well as a toolkit for our global people operation. But common theme when we selected a tool is their ability to provide seamless integration with the different, like a technology and tool, whether, like they provide some API and webhook as an option. I think that is a very important consideration, because more and more we will have some challenge of some operation and also like conjunctional harmony between different departments. So by having only like that, like a seamless integration and automation, we will be achieved a certain quality of our operation throughout those, like tech stacks.
Got it. And thank you for sharing that. I think I very much agree with that. Actually, Bamboo HR was one that we've been hearing a lot about, and people have been requesting us to build an integration. And we actually just launched our Bamboo HR integration yesterday, and it's been a huge hit. So I definitely agree with that. And Dara, how about yourself? What are some of the best tools in your HR management software toolkit?
Okay, I think when we choose HR systems, we usually focus on how they can help us to save times. So like if the HR systems can help us for the recruiting, for us it's LinkedIn. It can help us for the recruiting and search lot of talent pools. And like another system we use is a local system. It's help us to do the payroll and meet the local labor law. Is really important. Really important function. Yeah. So yeah, that's all.
Got it. Thank you so much for sharing that. Next up, we have a question that I'm actually very curious about the answers for this. Angeline is asking, how do you solve conflicts among team members remotely? I think we all have best practices on how we solve them in person, but remotely could be a whole other thing. So is there anybody who wants to kind of go first, or should I randomly pick from the screen?
I can go first with this one.
All right.
I think some of the conflicts have changed, given people are not physically together. We are now talking about a different kind of conflicts, which are more about productivity, maybe more about difference in opinion versus something which have happened physically before. And given I've managed like 55 people sitting in the same office, few things happened over here and there as well. So one of the things which we have felt is really good is giving kudos to people, like talking a bit more about that, what you like about other person, and appreciate what they have done. And we do it on Slack channel as well, where I think like sometimes a conflict is happen suddenly and that just accelerated. But those Slack chats actually help you understand that this person was so good to me. The second, I think, which we are planning to implement is 30, 60, 90 days of talking to another person over virtual coffee, which is, hey, you're forced to have a coffee of 15 minutes with the other person. And that actually help you solve any kind of, or like resolve the conflict before they can come, and understand each other. These are not adding extra meetings or extra useless meetings. I think they're actually solving a lot of things, because now you're not doing a lot of HR work or people ops work separately. You're just talking to your own colleagues with whom you're working with. So that's my point.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Anything else to add from Sanghee or Dara on conflict resolutions for remote team members?
Okay, I can go first. I think conflict can have a big impact on a team productivity and morale. So there was a true before the pandemic, and a recent study showed that the workday is only getting longer as we are shifting to a more distributed remote work environment. So that's where Google Workspace comes in, and because we use that. Google Workspace is designed to be and function in a way that is truly helpful for us to solve the teams conflicts, because we can share the same documents and we can discuss the same things that avoid the different opinion. And then it can like, okay, sorry. I think it's really good collaboration tools for us to use Google's documents and Google Sheets and Google Workspace. It avoid the conflicts between the teams and like different conflict, because they have different opinions.
Got it. Thank you for sharing that. And I think I agree with you, Dara, in that because we work digitally, there's a paper trail, or I guess a digital trail, for a lot of the decisions that are being made. And, you know, assuming we're all adults, and when you're not in an office, there's really no space for office politics because you're not there to have it. And there being a track record of everything that was discussed, all the opinions, you're able to actually, you know, put things on a screen and say, hey, where's this disagreement coming from? Let's see, let's look at it from both angles. And it just creates this very objective environment to get to the bottom of an issue where nobody feels attacked in any way. All right. Well, next up, we have a question. So it's coming from, I really hope I'm saying this name right, Gang Ho. No employee ever complains about remote working. Actually, I'm a big fan of work from home, which helps maximize output efficiency, but curious about other voices. If any, I'd love to hear the reasons. And I can kind of get this going, and then I'll let our panelists think about like, what are the reasons why people think remote work or work from home might be a bad idea? And one that I have heard from, you know, people that are in different sectors, specifically, I think Abhinav and Sanghee, you might be able to relate to this, is in, for example, consulting. when you hire, you know, a recent grad that's supposed to become like an associate on the track, they learn a lot just by being near the partners and by being dragged into those meetings. And oftentimes they're the fly on the wall that do the analyst work behind the scenes. And I've heard concerns from consultant companies or, you know, big law where they said, if I don't give that exposure to my new hires, the people that are just coming straight out of university, I don't know how to put them in front of my clients in the future if they're never going to get that training. So that was kind of the other side of it that I have heard relatively recently. I'd love to hear if anybody has an argument for the other side. Maybe it's not a fit for every single, you know, sector out there. Sanghee, would you like to kick us off?
Yeah. So if I understand Kono's question, you know, like correctly, he wants to understand about, you know, some of the situation where non-remote work and, you know, office work can be, you know, like a more effective. I think I can mention two parts. Some of the like some project or department where it requires some close cross-departmental collaboration. I think sometimes we our employee assess that, state that some in-office and in-person meeting actually guarantee more quality interaction and in-depth situation, as well as a management of conflict as well. Sometimes if you are trying to like accommodate some quality and necessary conflict by doing some, you know, like a cross-functional like a discussion, it sometimes accompany like unavoidable conflict. And managing that conflict effectively after the conversation is important. And many people, you know, witnesses that it is limited in the remote operation. And secondly, the manager's time and team, you know, like a management is also in the risk, because when we look at our manager's calendar in the weekly basis, their calendar is fully booked because of the one-on-one they try to have with their team member in the remote situation. Previously, they had a chance of a team lunch or team dinner in order to escalate and also manage the team's morale. Now the operation needs to be done each by each, like through the Zoom or remote operation. So how we can actually manage the teams, you know, like a management, as well as teams like a morale and engagement management in this remote situation is very challenging mission.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Dara, anything to add there on, you know, when work from home might be more of a problem than a good thing?
Okay, thank you. I think I can share one pros for the remote work, because everyone says remote works can save a lot of times because they don't need to change their clothes, they don't need to do the makeup, and they are easily to save more times to balance their life with their family. Yeah, that's all one point.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Thank you for sharing that. We're entering in the last 10 minutes, so I'm going to start combining some questions here. We have a few people asking about, you know, what are some ways in which you can create connections with remote work? How do you create, you know, a culture of team commitment and culture attachment to the company when you're not physically able to be there? So if we could, you know, touch base on how do you build out that team culture in some of the more, I guess, fun ways to create that cohesiveness, that would be great. And Sanghee, why don't we kick it off with you?
I may not be the best person to ask about the question for fun, but so our manager does, you know, like so we have culture of product and engineering first. So we are highly, you know, like a technical product. So our engineering team is, you know, we think very important talent we want to retain and also escalate their culture. So our manager are asked to host some bi-weekly team meeting, as well as they are asked to create some like a remote team lunch and remote team dinner. So where everyone can order some food from delivery like an option, and they actually like shared what they are like ordered and just have the meal together with the team, you know, like an environment over Zoom. And the interesting thing is every quarter we have a team workshop And team workshop may have a different theme. So the other, we had a team workshop over pizza. What does it mean is how to slice the pizza in the different way, and how they can actually relate it to the team culture and their team color. Was the interesting, very silly topic, but everyone was very enthusiastic of participating. So we try to demonstrate each team color by doing their own style of workshop. So that is some of the way we try to encourage the team culture of engineering team.
Got it. Thank you. I actually love that. I probably would have tried to spiral the pizza inwards to see if it can work. Probably wouldn't, but it would look funny. Abhinav, how about yourself? What are some of the ways in which you create that connection?
Yeah, so more than fun, I would even go for how people are evaluating themselves these days. And so when we were working physically in an office, sometimes when we are trying to explain a problem or the product which we are working on, 2 or 3 team members will combine together and answer that together. Your KPIs are again the team based, and someone might be helping you out and you're like, oh, I'm actually competing with this guy within the team, and you have different idea, and that changes the commitment there and then. All of us are working solo right now. We don't see the other person for weeks, months. So now what's happening is that we are actually testifying our own commitment that, oh, am I contributing enough to the company? Am I able to tell other, people are asking me directly that what problem are you solving? So number one, I actually go on 2 scenarios in that sense, that if we can actually define for every remote person and every remote team member that what they're solving and understand their, if they're able to explain that to their mother, that this is exactly what they're doing, I think that raises the commitment into the company as well, because now they know what is the problem they're solving. They feel attached to the company. Number 2 is defining the team KPIs and solo KPIs we have always been doing, but putting them in a metrics chart, putting that in front of Excel so that they are able to see it, where they can see their own progress, and appreciating them when they have achieved it. And if they're unable to achieve it, talking to them with the PD advisor on the front that, hey, what you're struggling with, because they might be struggling with a lot of things right now, that families under COVID, or they're stressed out something which is happening at home, etc., whatever it is, right? Understanding those 2 parts. And that's where I have seen that companies who are able to provide those 2 things in the pandemic era are able to do really well and have their employees very committed and very enthusiastic about the work which has been done.
Mm-hmm. Got it. And Dara, any last words from you?
Okay. I think people are able to move seamlessly and effortlessly between the email, chat, video, calling, content, collaboration, everything they need, thoughtfully connected to get work done. So I think using a good tools to facilitate and collaborations for management, and you will be creating a very good connection internally and make the culture of trust.
Got it. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's so important to have that culture of trust, where you can just exist in that remote place with people. We have one question asking about how do we improve performance when people are working solo? So potentially someone is not, putting forward their best work, or they're not reaching to the levels of what you've hired them for. How do you go about, improving their performance? And why don't we kick it off with Abhinav, yourself, and then we can go to Dara and then to Sanghee. Oh, you're muted.
When the team members are away, one of the when we are not physically together, we miss these 1 minute or 2 minute interactions with other people. And I think if we look at the growth of people and growth of team members, what we have realized is that how important these 1 to 2 minutes interaction with people are. You don't need to block anyone's calendar. You can just chat and you can learn faster and better, right? And when you're talking about improving the performance of people, what helps the best for people is, what I have seen is having a buddy, an allocation of buddy on day 1 itself, that, hey, this is someone who has joined the company 3 months before you or 6 months before you. And work with this person. Any questions you have, just talk to this person. And I think that's where having a great buddy also plays a very crucial role for the person. Sometimes you allocate a buddy who's like super senior and people are like, hey, how do I talk to this person? I will sound very stupid. Where I have seen is that when you allocate a buddy who's 3 to 6 months in advance with this person, actually help them have a great relationship, number one. And number two is they are able to see that where they will be in 3 to 6 months and what is their KPI is going to be, and they want to improve, say, 20% better or 30% better. And that's what as a company also we want. And that actually helps a lot, at least from my side.
Got it. Anything to add to that, Dara or Sanghee?
Okay, I agree with Abhinav's, give that employee a buddy, because it always feels good to know who they can ask for help. So when they are facing difficulty, they can ask their buddy. And then we think is more training on that employee is really important, because if they didn't perform well, they need help on some work. So give them the training they need is really important.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Sanghee, anything to add on your end? I know you're managing a very technical team.
Yeah, so giving good example is always important to understand about what is the quality work. So in order to do so, we always try a lot of approach of documenting some previous work or achievements. So anyone can easily take a reference of what the previous quality work will look like. And secondly, also we create the culture of radical candor. Radical candor is a concept of challenge it directly and care personally. So by doing so, not only just from you are getting a feedback from your manager, but also your peer and your a different team member can also give you very direct a feedback. And one of the third thing we try to do is we actually separate the performance review and promotion and market adjustment. What is the effective of this one? So once the salary adjustment and promotion is somehow attached to your performance a review, then you can become some defensible in terms of estimating yourself, and you cannot be solely focused on your self-development. So by separating due procedure out in the different time cycle, so we allow a person to solely focus on the self-improvement and how the person can achieve the self-growth within this organization.
Mm-hmm. That's incredibly helpful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I realized it is almost on the hour. So we have to wrap this up. I know we have a few more questions that are unanswered. Fear not, people. We actually get a list of these questions after the event. We're able to track them. So we will be reaching out to those individually if your question was unanswered. So you can expect to hear from someone from the Deel team. I want to thank SendBird, CloudMile, Sanghee, Dara, and Abhinav for being here. This was actually incredible. And I love when we get to do these no bullshit events where people actually share useful things instead of a bunch of fluff. And I mean, at Deel, I think Abhinav would agree, we're excited to be a part of a movement that allows people to work and hire internationally. And if anybody is looking to take that next step and need help with their compliance or payments, you can always reach out to us at letdeel.com right here. Any last parting words, Abhinav or anybody else? And SendBird and CloudMile.
Yeah, I just believe that I really love this whole thing which remote work is coming in. We know I believe in talent is everywhere, and it's restricted by the boundaries of labor law, tax law, payroll management, and these tools. We should just find the talent. It just adds so much diversity, so much culture to your company. It's so colorful from day one itself. And yeah, that's the future of work from me, and very happy to be in the episode 2 of this.
Yes. Thank you everyone for coming. Sinal, on to you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot, Meltem, Sanghee, Dara, and Abhinav. I think that was a wonderful discussion and a lot of insights shared. So I'm sure every one of the attendees here has learned a lot about scaling and remote working and culture, etc. So again, so this webinar is done in partnership with Deel, and we are happy to announce that they have a special promo for members of the E27 community. So you can get 3 months free subscription And afterwards, you can get 30% off if you're a contract staff, or 20% off if you're a full-time employee when you sign up to Introduce. So you can claim this benefit by clicking the link indicated on the screen or scanning the QR code. Okay, and Tin? Okay, so this is the second of the series of webinars that we'll be holding with the Deel. So you can find about the upcoming ones as well as other events and programs that you may be keen on joining at /events, or by signing up for on Introduce account if you have not yet. So and get updated by the daily digest. So again, thanks a lot for all the attendees, and thanks for the questions, and thanks for the panelists. And thank you everyone for joining us. See you online again. Thank you. Bye.